Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us today. And today's episode will be about talking about licenses and maybe even a little bit about business insurances. You're based on the Sunshine Coast, but in Noosa Council. And you've just recently started a new business. You're a bit of a serial entrepreneur. So how about you give us a bit of background on Lisa and then a little bit of background on the most recent business you've started?
Well, thanks, Tanya. I think between myself and my husband, this is our fifth business that we've started in Australia, and each of them has been very different. Initially, we had businesses in the fitness and outdoor event space, and now we have a cafe called Rockhop Espresso in Coolum. So there are a lot of things that we've been able to take as business owners and entrepreneurs into this new space, but there's also a lot of things we had to research and become familiar with to be able to move into this new industry. So yeah, it's been a journey, and I think, as you know, every business teaches you lessons, and I think for us it's always about having good mentors and getting really good at all the numbers side of things. And building communities. I think we've always felt that we enjoy building communities, and so coming from the fitness space into the cafe space, that was a common thing. You're gathering people together, and it's, at the end of the day, I think it's a lot about your people skills. But obviously in the beginning, setting up a new business, there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of legislation and licenses to get through, and it can be quite overwhelming. And I think, as I was saying to you before, a lot of new business owners will stick their head in the sand and just hope that those things will go away. But it's worth doing the research and taking the time to set up the business and the licenses and all the registrations, so that you have peace of mind that nothing's going to trip you up further down the line.
So you've spoken about how you took the leap from fitness to cafe, which is interesting, that whole community thing, but you're absolutely right. A business is all about the people and how you engage with them and how you make them feel about your brand and your product and everything. But yeah, so Unicorn Club is all about the stuff before that, where you get the structure of your business right, and where you don't trip up and have to undo a lot of the things the decisions that you make in the beginning. So with Rockhop, could you tell us, what was the business structure that you chose? Are you a company or are you a sole trader, and why did you choose that specific business structure?
We are a company, but we've actually set it up under our family trust. So our accountants kind of put together some different scenarios for us. We didn't want to operate as a sole trader. There's obviously things you need to think about with regards to insurances and liabilities down the line as a sole trader. So yeah, we already had a family trust set up, and so the business is structured under that. I'm not the greatest in terms of all the detail around that, because I had to get the accountant to kind of draw it all out for me, because we also have a self-managed super fund. So it's all kind of interconnected, but yes, it is run as a company.
Yeah, and we always say when trusts are involved, it's best to get a professional, because there are just so many intricacies around trusts that you need to focus on. But as a sole trader, you would have been personally liable for the debts of the company, and that's where all of these licenses and business registrations come in, because otherwise you could lose your personal assets in the process. So that is one of the modules that we cover as well. So let's look at business licenses. So a cafe is probably, or food service is probably, one of the most onerous sort of licensing entities or business industries that you could get into. There's all sorts of things you need to think about. So how did you even start? How did you know where to? Did you just go and Google licenses?
We were very fortunate to have a very good friend who owns a cafe in Noosa. So we spent quite a long time with him just at his cafe. He bought the cafe already running, so he didn't really have the same experience as us from starting from scratch, but he was aware of a lot of the licensing and registrations required. So we started with what he had, but then we soon realized that his business actually sat in a different council to us, and that both of those councils had different requirements around food licensing and running a cafe or a restaurant where you serve food. So we did have to look at the local council website, and they have a lot of information there for new businesses under, you know, everything from licenses to where you can find out more. They're really good over the phone. You can even go there in person. So we just started to create a list about what we needed to do. One of the hardest things to try and decipher with the cafe was a food business license. It was quite tricky in the beginning to decipher when and how you need to have one. So they've got a list of requirements, and if you prepare or heat food on a premises, then you require a certain license. And for other premises where, for example, you might just be doing coffee and tea and serving ready-made food, you actually don't need the same licenses. So for us, we had to really understand that clearly, because we didn't want to fall short anywhere. So that was quite a process of just calling council and getting their input and making sure we were applying for the correct license there. So that's a food business license. Before we even got to that point though, there were a few other things that we needed to do, and that was finding a premises to lease, and then making sure that that premises was zoned for commercial use and for use as a cafe or restaurant. So the premises we found was a new build, and we then had to approach the landlord and council and make sure that both of them were satisfied that we were going to be setting up a cafe in that premises.
So does that mean does that mean that some premises are not suitable for running a cafe? So you could run a boutique dress shop, but not a cafe?
That's right. So depending on the level of what you're setting up. So say you were going to set up a restaurant that was open late at night, we probably wouldn't have got permission to do that, because there's residential units above our cafe. And in terms of noise, serving alcohol, things like that is a very different set of rules and guidelines. So because we're only open during the day and we don't have a lot of noise, we also don't have a noisy kitchen, because we only serve pre-prepared food. So there were quite a lot of little things to note about whether that premises would work or not. In the past, we've seen, when we were running fitness businesses, we've seen quite a lot of gyms that set themselves up in industrial estates, for example, and they didn't find out beforehand that they were actually not allowed to set up that type of business in that industrial estate, and then have been moved on and fined further down the line. So you really don't want to be in that situation where you spent a lot of money on a fit out and a lease and all the legal things that go around that, and then to find out that you're actually not allowed to trade there. So it's really worth doing your homework on that point, I feel. So yeah, that was the first part. Then once we knew that the premises was okay for that type of use, we then were engaged in all the process around getting a lease signed, and then finding someone to do the fit out. And again, there's certain things that have to happen there. You need to get permission from your landlord to do the fit out, and they have to see all the plans and what you intend to do. And you also have to have council come and do a building inspection and approve the fit out as well. So at every stage, there are people or entities that need to be informed, and to ensure that you can keep moving forward. And again, it's really worth doing your homework. If you miss one of those steps, you don't want to be further down the line having put up all your savings or investment into a fit out that then isn't approved by your landlord or by council.
And how did you know what these steps were? Was that from assistance with council, or was this through your mentor?
The company that did the fit out, usually they look after the building inspections and they engage with council on that. So usually that would be part of your contract with the fit out company. So they were paid to look after all the kind of building inspections. But with regards to the landlord, it was just all part of our lease that said the landlord had to be informed and kept up to date with, and had to approve any plans for fit outs or changes to the interior or exterior of the premises.
So it's really important for you to read all of those agreements and make sure that you kind of create a checklist out of your agreement.
Totally. There's a lot of small print, and I mean, I couldn't believe how big our lease was. It was a big document that took a long time to get through all the lawyers. And yet we felt it was a simple lease agreement, and yet there was always things that we had to do at each stage before we even moved into the premises. And you know, there were other things about how much time we had to do the fit out, and at what point the premises needed to be ready for us to be able to open the doors and start trading, and that made a difference to the rent that we were going to pay, and you know, rent-free periods. There was quite a lot of detail that we needed to put into that plan, so that we could also then inform the fit-out company of when we needed to be open by.
Wow, and then you know, any delays on their side, any COVID delays would have also had an impact.
Yeah, and well, we were. I don't know if it's brave or silly enough, but we wanted to be open before Christmas last year, and there was a big rush with a lot of businesses trying to get their fit outs done in time for the Christmas holidays. And luckily for us, we managed to get it done and get open in time, but there was a period of uncertainty where we weren't sure whether it was going to happen in time, and we would have missed that busy period over Christmas for trading. So I think you're going to always have that with fit outs. I've heard from lots of friends and mentors that there's often delays, especially given the current climate with building materials not being available and things that might cause delay. So yeah, it's really juggling all those different pieces and making sure you've got the right licenses in place, the right people have been informed, and it's really about communication and keeping people up to date, because there's a lot of people involved at that point.
And Lisa, so you had your premises, you had your fit out, you've had council around. Was there anything else that you needed? Were there things that you didn't expect? Like, I've just been onto ABLIST's website, which is the Australian business license, and they've got this cool wizard that you can go through. And I sort of said I want to open a cafe, and there were 40 different licenses, approvals, registrations that were required. And one of them was like waste management. And the other one that I also noticed was one that people don't know about is if you're going to play music in your cafe, you actually need an APRA license to for the copyrights that protect that music. So
yes, I have used that tool and it is very helpful. I think using that tool in combination with your council, wherever your premises sit, you know, a combination of those two things is good. We also, before we could open the cafe, we had to get whoever your local water supplier is in the area. Ours was Unity Water. They had to come and do a wastewater inspection and then inform us in terms of what kind of plumbing we had to install in the cafe to be able to deal with any waste matter or grease traps. So that was another thing that had to be done prior to the fit out being started. Again, our fit out company did assist us in navigating those steps. There were also a couple of other things that came to the forefront. I won't talk about COVID regulations because I think they're different in every state, and you've really just got to keep up to date on what your requirements are for that. But in pest inspections and aircon inspections have to happen every 6 months. So you have to schedule that in and have proof that you've done both those things if you ever are to have any kind of health and safety inspection from council. Trying to think about what else there was. Oh, footpath dining. So as a cafe, if you have tables that you want to put outside of your premises, every council again will indicate to you how much space you can use on the footpath so that you're not obstructing it. And then you pay an annual fee to use that space, and they come and use little markers which show you exactly where your cafe furniture can be and where it can't be. There's also another license to do with dogs, and whether or not you allow people to have their dogs outside a cafe. So yeah, now that I think about it, there was quite a few things to do. But yeah, we kind of just took it one step at a time and had a list and kept going back to that list. Again, being organized and just asking other people.
Yeah. Does every one of these have a form that you have to complete? Or is there sort of a global form and then you just tick all the licenses?
No, they're all separate forms on the council website. So yeah, they're kind of PDF forms that you print or fill out, scan and sign, send away, and then someone processes it for you. And then once it's set up, you just get a 6 monthly or annual bill for it. And you have to inform them if there's been any changes.
And what do you have to keep on your premises? Do you have to keep a big folder with all these licenses, or how does it work?
Yeah, I mean, we've got them all, I guess, in the cloud, but we do print out. There was one other thing that I think of now is a food handling. It's not really a license, but for all of your staff that are dealing with food, you have to go through an online course called a food handling certificate. And it's a free course on the council website. But each of your staff go through that so that they know about all the hygiene, washing hands, all the different things you need to know about storing food, temperatures of fridges, waste management. So quite a lot of different things that you need to make sure are happening. So we kind of have checklists for our staff, and we also get them to do that certificate each year.
Goodness me, it's a complex setup process for a very simple business, isn't it?
It is, and people don't appreciate that or know that, and you wouldn't know that until you start going down that path. So again, I think, you know, we get excited by the logo and the name, and we get excited about opening a business, but I think to have peace of mind, you've got to do all that boring stuff, because you don't want to have done everything, set it up, be operating, and then start to be dealing with not having the right things in place to be able to operate smoothly. So yeah, it's just one of those things, really.
And there's also another aspect that you mentioned there in terms of your budgeting. You get annual renewals and annual fees or 6 monthly fees that if you haven't done all this research, you might not understand the impact of that on your profitability or your ability to take on new staff members or invest in maybe a bigger coffee machine or a new, maybe you want to start selling gelato or buy a juicer or something like that. And yeah.
I think what we've learned with all our businesses is that you need you need to systemize things, and you need tools that give you really good reports so that you can make decisions based on numbers and stats rather than what you think is happening. So we've learned that a lot over the years is you might think you know what's popular in your business, or what, you know, what's the most popular coffee that people buy. You might think you know, but if you have the right tools in place and a point of sale and some kind of reporting system that links in with your banking and your point of sale, you can actually run reports, and it will tell you daily exactly when your sales are at their highest, what time of day, what sells the best, what doesn't. And you can then use those numbers to make really good decisions around your budgets. And yes, you do need to budget for annual and 6 monthly costs, because sometimes you pay the bill at the time and forget that that's going to come around again. And it might be a time of year when business is quite slow and you really don't want to have to be putting a lot of money out there. So having a budget that's averaged out over the year is a good idea. And as a new business, it's not always possible because we haven't even been open for a year, but we've now got sort of 9 months worth of data, and we've started to extrapolate that now over 12 months so that we know what our average monthly costs are, incorporating all those annual costs.
That's great. And so I don't even know if we did say what the business is. So it's Rockhop Espresso in Coolum, and
Yes.
they make the best. What's your most favorite coffee? Or what's the one
Well,
that
the
sells
most
the best?
popular coffee is a large flat white, but we focus really on specialty coffee. So we have a really top quality espresso machine. We only hire baristas that are highly trained and have a lot of experience in specialty coffee. That's our point of difference, is that we want people to come for consistently good coffee. The food that we provide is a little extra treat on the side, and we only use local providers to bring fresh things in each day. We really focused on supporting local businesses and being a part of the community and providing a really nice space for people to meet and to enjoy coffee. So yeah, one of the things we just did recently was a survey of our customers, and we asked a lot of questions around what could we do better? What do they like or not like about the setting or the ambience? How do they rate our customer service? How do they rate the consistency of the coffee? And it's a really good thing to do, at that like 6 monthly kind of that point where you're halfway into the business, because I think it can sometimes be at that point. There's a book called The Dip, which talks about how everything in the beginning is exciting and you're kind of running on adrenaline, and then you go into this dip where you're going, oh, okay, come on now, when are the profits going to increase, and when are the sales going to increase? And you can be really stuck in this thing of what else can we do? But you really need to reach out to your customers and find out if what you're doing so far is working or not, and where you can improve or change things going forward. So that was a really good exercise to do. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us about all of this sort of nitty-gritty part of the business. And it's really good to get those insights into how a simple business can become complicated and complex and what the risks are. So I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think, it can sound scary, and you have to have a bit of courage if you're going to go down the path of having your own business. There's a lot of benefits to it as well. But I think, just finding a mentor and doing your research. And if you, like me, aren't that great at the whole numbers thing, you just have to just try and work with someone that knows the numbers game, because I think at the end of the day, you've got to know where your business is at, and all your decisions are going to be kind of informed around that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important. That's a really important message for anybody who's actually starting a business as well, is to have the courage and to just do it. Because, what's the worst that can happen? You can learn from your mistakes, or you could be a raging success.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think about security and mistakenly believe that having a corporate job or any job is secure. And I just don't think that, so many people said to us when we opened this business that we're brave, and it didn't feel like it at the time. It just felt like we needed to do this for ourselves and for our family. And yeah, we did have to be brave given the current climate, but there's always going to be things outside of your control. So focus on the things that you can be responsible for and be good at it, and just have the courage to get through the difficult times, because there will be difficult times in every business. It isn't going to go from 0 to 100 as fast as we would like it to. So you've got to put that in the back of your mind and have patience and have resilience.
Yeah, and I think consistency, it's just like, just keep plugging away at it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well done and good luck, and I hope those borders open so that you can have a bumper Christmas season.
Yeah, we look forward to having all you guys up here again.
Bye, Lisa.